Okay, so I'll ask this girl here who sat brilliantly, do you want me to start with something from the inside or something from the outside?
Outside.
Outside, okay. As the wind blew through her thin brown hair, she was pleased that she'd put all of her long hair into a bun so it would not go into her dark but dull eyes. She was a shy girl, friendly, and if she'd had a chance, she would have eaten something other than what she had to hunt for. She would always hunt for goats or rabbits, and she did not like the taste of the meat, but she had no other choice. She would do as she was told, but she could be quite forceful herself and say that she would stamp her feet. She was a strong girl, and even though she had this bright smile upon her red rosy lips, she would love to have eaten bread, or better still, baklava. Baklava dripping in honey, smothered in almonds. She put her hand against her old soft ragged clothes and stamped barefoot upon the ground. The dust rose about her. She knew that she would never be allowed to take part in the games. She was strong and athletic, but a woman had no place at the games. It sounds like this. The sun was glimmering on the waves as they crashed on the thin rocks. On the other side of the bank she could see the tall city. There, the houses were nearly 2 stories high. She'd never been to that place, because close by where she lived there was a waterfall. It made the air fresh and humid, but there was no way she could get across that river. End description. Here we go. Her fearful heart was beating fast inside of her chest. She couldn't believe it, that the seagulls were calmly floating in the air. The screeching was scratching at her ears. She was nervous, working towards being terrified, and now all she could smell in the air was the dry smell of blood from the butchers. Year 5, Year 6, complete story. She was a shy and friendly girl. She'd just eaten what she'd hunted for, some goat's flesh, but she did not like the taste of it. The wind blew through her thin brown hair, and she was pleased that she tied it behind her so that it would not fall into her eyes or into her food. But despite everything, being poor, she still had a bright red rose smile upon her lips. She was a strong girl, and she was forced to eat whatever she could catch and kill, but she did not like the taste of it. She raised her hands against her old soft ragged clothes and wished against everything else that she could have gone and stood in the bread shop, or maybe stolen a piece of baklava filled with honey and almonds. And in frustration she stamped her foot, and the dust rose into the air. The dust rose into the air on this athletic girl with everything in this world to live for. As she was standing by the side of the river, the sun was glimmering on the waves as they crashed on the thin rocks. On the other bank she could see the tall city. She'd never been there. She would never be able to get across that river, for the waterfall was deep and steep. It made the air fresh and humid, but she could not believe her eyes as she looked. Down this river there came a fierce warship that made her drop the chipped wooden bowl from her hands. And as she looked above and beyond this great warship, she could see the Rocky Mountains behind them. These people had travelled from this tall city on the other bank. It was not good. The gods had sent hazel-coloured birds to wheel above the cliff that made this waterfall. The butterflies seemed to fly into the air and make a rainbow with their fluttering wings. This was not a good sign. It made her feel as if there was some terrible magic, that the gods were angry with the things that she had said and done. For she had wanted to take part in the games, but she was a girl, and she would never have been allowed to do this thing. She just seemed to stand there. And watch the waves as they dazzled her. The rain had fallen and left a pond by her feet. But it was as that boat got closer, she could see and smell fire in the air. Oh, they were going to send an arrow of fire into her small town and destroy it. As she watched them flying above her, she looked again towards the snow of the mountains. When she arrived in that village on the other side of the river. Her heart was fearful and beating fast inside of her chest. She couldn't believe that these hazel-coloured birds and seagulls were calmly floating in the air. She had been taken and captured, and this place that she'd never been to. She was standing there, nervous and terrified, a slave inside of this tall buildings, all of these tall buildings. She stood there. There was a dry smell of blood in the air, but not just from the butcher's shop as she stood there. She knew that all of her family would have been taken to the sword, and she was allowed to live only because she was a girl in this tall city on the other bank of the river.